Hey, YouTube family. This is your girl, Bree. I'm back again with another episode of Couch Conversations. So today's episode is titled The Spirit of Rejection. And so, yeah, that's what today's video is going to be about. So let's go ahead and dive right into the video. So before I go into details, and as far as my own personal testimony, let's go ahead and dive right into scripture first. So when I think about the term rejection, like some synonyms that comes to mind: abandonment, neglect, or being looked over or ignored. So all of those terms are similar to the term rejection. So when I think about biblical rejection, I think about the story in Genesis 29, I think. And that story, is about Rachel and Leah. And so for those of you who are familiar with that story, you guys know where I'm coming from. But for those of you who are not familiar with that story, I'm going to just go ahead and just give you a quick little summary. So the story of Leah and Rachel. So it was this guy named Jacob, or whatever, was working for this man named Laban, who was the father of Leah and Rachel. And so he worked for this guy. The guy no longer wanted him to work for free. And so, Jacob decides to work for him for one of Laban's daughters. And he wanted to work for the youngest daughter. And reason being is the Bible describes, Leah as being tender-eyed or without sparkle and all of those things, which means, she probably wasn't that good looking. But the Bible describes Rachel, which is Laban's youngest daughter, as being beautiful figured and, nice looking. So Jacob decides to, work for 7 years for Laban in return of Rachel, which was the good looking daughter. And so, after the 7-year period, Laban decides to hand over Leah, which wasn't, Jacob's preference, I guess. So he handed over Leah, and, their customs or laws or whatever, was that you couldn't, marry the youngest daughter without marrying the firstborn or whatever. So Jacob took Leah's hand in marriage, and he worked the additional 7 years for Rachel. He ended up marrying Rachel too, which means he had 2 wives, but he ended up marrying Rachel, and the Bible says that he loved Rachel more than Leah, even though he was married to them both. So when I think about that story and when I read about that story, the first thing I think of is how Leah may have felt in that moment. You marrying somebody and they prefer your sister, over you because she happens to look better than you or whatever the case may be. So, the first thing I thought about was how she, felt during that time. And I know she felt rejected. I know she felt, rejected and all of the things. But anyways, when I think of the spirit of rejection in my own personal life, I dealt with the spirit of rejection from, early childhood all the way into adulthood. And I didn't understand why, initially, but, as time went on, I started to grow, in my spiritual walk and things like that, and just, asking mom about certain things. And I discovered that, I was rejected in the womb. My mom didn't want me. She didn't want me. She had, my oldest sister by, a guy, and that didn't work out, of course. And then she had my middle sister, by a guy. And she and I, we have the same father. But, unfortunately, it didn't work out where, her and my dad, he had done some things that, men or man or whatever shouldn't do. A lot of things that was very, 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 hurtful, very traumatic, and all of the things. So, with that being said, she had 1 baby by him and didn't have no intentions on having another. But she ended up getting pregnant with me. The first thing she said out of her mouth, which is, you have to be careful what you say because there's power in the tongue. But, she saw that positive pregnancy test. She immediately, rejected me because she didn't want another baby by this man who was treating her harshly. And so she wanted to abort me. You know, my grandmother, I think, you know, stopped her from doing that. So she decided to, you know, keep the baby. And so moving forward, you know, fast forward into the time that she went into labor. She went into labor. She went to the hospital with my oldest aunt. And, you know, she was pushing and pushing me out. And the doctor just, you know, told her to stop pushing for a sec. Because I think I was just, you know, sliding out or coming out too fast. I don't know, you know, what the hospitals were like back in the day. But anyway, the doctor told her, instructed her to stop pushing. She continued to push. I, being as small as I was, you know, came flying out. And if it wasn't for my aunt being there, I more than likely would have hit the floor and probably died. But yeah, it was a reason why, you know, just hearing that story. The devil knows what you're about to birth. What you know, I went on about life, you know, still carrying this spirit without even knowing it. And so I will always wonder and question why, you know, my other two sisters was always the preferred, you know, ones over me. You know, how I was always, you know, the outsider in the family. And, you know, I was the one that was always being treated differently. You know, and so I used to find myself trying to work for my mother's attention, work for, you know, her acceptance, or, you know, work for her to see me or love me, you know, and things like that. And, you know, being a child and having to do all that, it can really take a toll over you and your overall mental health, because especially when you don't understand what's going on. And I didn't understand. So, you know, the more I would try to attach myself to her, the more she would pull away and, you know, say certain things that you really shouldn't say to your kids and things like that. And, you know, I found myself, you know, dealing with depression because of it. I later ended up having suicide ideations, and I actually started, you know, acting out those different, you know, feelings. I would hear stories about, you know, certain classmates and things. And, you know, I know one particular girl said that, you know, she took a bunch of pills or something. You know, she took over 20 pills, and if her mom hadn't found her and got her to the hospital in time, she would have passed away. And so me dealing with what I was dealing with at home, and me hearing, you know, that story, you know, me, you know, the first thing I thought about, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll take 20 pills too then and see what happens, you know. I later ended up meeting a guy, you know, he was a upperclassman, I guess you can say. You know, I was a freshman in high school, and he was, I think he was like a junior or something like that. But, you know, he sought after me and things like that. I really didn't like the guy like that. That wasn't my initial focus going into high school. I just like, you know what, I was always an honor roll student, and that was my main focus, you know, to continue to do great things, you know, ignore, you know, any outsiders or naysayers and all that, those things. Just keep my focus on, you know, doing great things. And so, you know, the treatment at home got worse, you know, and things like that. You know, I started telling him about it, and, you know, he was like, you know, the Superman. You know, I really didn't know, you know, I didn't really have a relationship with God like that. I went to church and things like that, but I didn't personally know God and, you know, and stuff like that. I just didn't understand, you know, why I was birthed into a family like this, into a situation like this. I didn't understand it. So when he came along, long story short, I told him about what I was dealing with. He immediately wanted to help, and yeah, and he did just that, or whatever. Everything that I wasn't getting in the home, he was there to provide for me, like clothes. He would provide clothes and, you know, food and stuff. Years went by, we didn't work out, of course, and, you know, that's what started, you know, my journey with Christ. I was like, you know what, like, you know, I'm older now, you know, I graduated junior college. Here I am in a 4-year, continuing my education. I no longer have to deal with, you know, being in the house with my family. I no longer have to deal with him, you know. So now I can do things for me and, you know, focus on me and things like that. And so, like I said, I still, you know, even with moving out of the house and, you know, I still dealt with that spirit, because it showed, even in my friendships, it showed in my friendships that, one of them, not even knowing my story, they would tell me about things they were dealing with at home with their mom or with their parents, or whatever. I will immediately gravitate towards them because I know how that felt, and me being friends with them, like, it wasn't just no ordinary friendship. Like, look, we like this. We done been through the same thing. We have moved on from those situations. So I would, try to prove myself in those friendships, because deep down, I would be afraid that they're going to abandon me. They're going to walk away from me and mistreat me if I didn't do these things. So, I had one friend or whatever, we clicked because we was in, the same, season, I guess, or whatever, and we clicked or whatever. But I didn't know that the whole time the girl didn't really like me. I was like, dang, I thought we was cool because we had similar stories or whatever. But the girl, she was using me. She really didn't like me like that. She just saw how nice and kind and empathetic I was, and she just took advantage. And so she would tell me things that was going on in her life, and I immediately tried to run to her rescue. And a lot of the times I was putting myself in harm's way, because I remember a time she was dating a police officer, and she was living out there in Arkansas. She was in grad school at the time, and she was dating this police officer who was like beating the crap out of her. And I remember she came to visit me or whatever, for us to catch up and for her to share in person some of the things that she was dealing with. And I was like heartbroken for her, because I don't deal well with abuse, especially physical. So I was like heartbroken for her. I was trying to see what I can do to help her, and things like that. And she knew that I was gonna offer my assistance. That's why she came. And I remember she was like, yeah, she said, I do need help. And I was like, okay, what do you need help with? And she told me that he stole her laptop, he stole her work badge, and he was out in the area and wanted her to come by and pick it up. And she didn't want to go by herself. And I was like, girl, like, I ain't finna go, I'm not finna go and that man do something to me. So I was like, call the police. He's an officer, out of state. So just call the police and have them escort you to get your belongings. And so she was like, no, because he told me that, he don't want nobody coming but me. No officers, nobody. I'm like, that sounds like a setup, girl. You'll be a fool. You better let him have that laptop and just buy you another one and work badge. You tell them, your HR that you lost it, see if they can issue you another one, whatever. But I was saying all these things, but deep down, I'm like, I can't let her go over there by herself, because that's the type of friend I was. And so I, she got in my car, I think. Yeah, she got in my car. And this man led us to a dead end. And it was already dark outside. I think it was like maybe 7 or 8 p.m. It was late, getting late. And so, he led us to this little dead end. It's black dark. And then I'm out here with her, so I'm scared. I'm like, don't nobody know where I'm at. This man can kill both of us and dump our bodies, out in the woods somewhere. Nobody gonna know nothing. And then nobody's probably going to believe that it's him because he's an officer. So I was so scared. I went to praying, y'all. And I was like, man, where you at? So she texted him and was like, hey, we're here. Where are you? And the message didn't get sent because he blocked her. So I'm like, what are the odds this man lead us somewhere and then now he done block you? I'm like, girl, I'm about to go home. Like, this seemed like some stuff you'll see in a scary movie. Like, I'm not finna be no fool. Like, but that's the type of friend I was, because I didn't want to feel rejected again. So I was doing like stuff that, I would normally do if I was in my right mind, right? And so it was a lot of that going on. And things like that. And I remember when she did graduate, from grad school in Arkansas, she invited me out to her graduation. And she said he was going to be there, things like that. But, he was doing better. They were doing better. So I was in college at the time, finishing up my undergrad. And I was graduating the following week. So because she was my friend, I was like, okay, I ain't really got no money like that, broke college student. I'm gonna come out there and I'm gonna support you. So I think Arkansas from Mississippi, I think it's about a 5-hour, 6-hour drive or something like that. So I gassed up my little car that was barely, getting me to point A to point B. So I gassed up my car and, got the tires and some things checked out, make sure I can get there. But I went, I supported her, I probably was the loudest friend, family member, I was the loudest because I was genuinely happy for her. And I remember I brought her a gift, and I was real life happy for her. So that same day I got back on the road, because like I said, I was preparing for my graduation. And so I sent her an invitation. I was like, hey, I'll be graduating, next week, and hopefully you come out and support. I love to see you. I love to have you there. We only getting 5 tickets, but I'm making sure that I save you one. And so she was like, oh, I'll be there, da da da. And I think the day before she was like, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna be able to come. And mind me, y'all, this was happening regularly, frequently. This was happening. I would always bend over backwards for her. And then I started to notice that I wasn't getting the same thing. And it started to bother me. I'm like, I'm being a good friend, really good friend to you. Why are you not being a good friend back? Why are you not supporting me? Why are you not, And so I went back to start thinking about, my family and, people in my household doing me the exact same way. So it started to affect me, again. And like I said, we eventually went our, separate ways and things like that. But, just not too long ago, I started, really studying this spirit of rejection and, how that can have an effect on you if you don't break that spirit off of you. And so I remember, being doing some fasting. I started, renouncing some things, and breaking that off in me, because I got tired of pouring, out into people and, supporting people and just doing all these things for people, and I never got it. And so I once I realized I was dealing with that spirit, I started to pray more about my friendships and, even, future relationships. God, I need to break this spirit off of me, because if I don't, I'm going to continue to go in the same cycle. It's so important, for me to not, feel sorry for everybody I meet. Because I know one thing about, as I was speaking of in my last video, one thing about a Jezebel, somebody with that spirit, they're going to always approach you with a sad story. And they do that on purpose to see, if you're going to take the bait, if you're going to fall for it. So if they're telling you a sad story, like, oh, I done been cheated on, oh, my family, did this, that, and the other, or this person or this spouse or SO or whatever, have done these things to me, they're waiting for you to be like, oh, are you okay? Oh, what can I do to help? Or how can I? They're waiting for that. And not saying that those things that they've gone through are not true, but they still are operating with such a demonic spirit that whether it's true or not, they want something from you. They know that you're the type that has a good heart and gonna fall, and they're out to get you, to drain you completely dry. They have no intentions on reciprocating anything. I have lost so many friends and really family members, because I started praying and I started asking God to, to open my eyes to the people I was dealing with. And when he started to do that, I was almost shocked. I wouldn't even say I was completely shocked, But I was almost shocked at the things that he started revealing, and how many people was only, attached to me to leech off of me. I was like, God, thank you. Thank you. Because more than likely, I probably wouldn't have saw it no other way. And so that's why I say you have to be careful. You have to take everybody to God.